Hello, everyone. I'm Mark,
I'm Rob.
and welcome to Mark and Rob's Sports Showdown. And today we're going to do a special video. We're going to talk about the polarization of Caitlin Clark and people evaluating her, and how I think that very few people are being objective. There's a lot of haters and lovers out there. Now, we did a previous video, which we also recorded today. So this is after 7 games, and they played tonight on Tuesday, May 28th. So in terms of evaluating her and how she's done, just be aware of that in case you watch the video after that date. And we went over all their strength and weaknesses, and that in the other video. So we're not going to cover all that today, but we're going to cover some of it again. So just so you don't say, oh, you're making excuses for a Caitlin Clark excuse channel. We have a video that went over everything that she's doing wrong and things that she needs to work on in her game. So just go watch the video first before you make a comment like that. That's all I'm saying. So Rob, I noticed there's a lot of polarization, a lot of people not being objective, in my opinion. Now, I'm not saying that I'm perfect at being objective about Caitlin Clark. So I'm a big Caitlin Clark fan. But I try to be, and every time, and I try to be that in sports in general, and I'm aware of that. And every time I try to rate someone or a team or think about it, I always say, okay, am I being objective? Do I like that player? Do I not like that player? Do I like that team? Do I not like that team? And I do that. And I think a lot of people aren't doing that. And that's why their initial reaction is all emotional. If you got to take the emotion out of it when you evaluate sports. And that's what I've learned throughout my years. And I think we're not getting that right now with Caitlin Clark. That's why you get some comments saying she's the worst player of all time and some comments saying she's the GOAT already. Neither one of those could be close to being possibly true.
Right.
So I'll go through all the negative comments that I've heard that I think are, I didn't even have to write them down. These are so ridiculous. But this is what I heard. One video said she's mediocre with no real accomplishments.
Right.
One person told me she's not going to be in the top 10 in scoring even half the seasons that she played. One person said several people's play. She said she plays zero defense, which is silly. But okay, zero defense. All right. Or she's a lousy defender. Mm-hmm. They say some people say she can't dribble. Not a great dribble. Can't dribble whatsoever. Mm-hmm. They say she's a one-trick pony. They say she can't create her own shot. Mm-hmm. They say she's vastly overrated. They say in her career she's just going to be all right or average. Or in college she was only all right or average. Or that she didn't deserve Player of the Year.
What do you think these?
That she's a turnover machine.
So what do you think? As you said, these aren't really valid. What do you think generates?
They think they're valid. They wouldn't be saying it.
Well, what do you think generates this type of kind of like hate? Not hatred. Yeah, hatred towards.
Okay, I tell you, there's two groups of people that I see, Rob. Maybe three. I think there are people who are Connecticut, LSU, South Carolina, maybe Tennessee, but fans of those colleges that really like the players that went through those major blue chip organizations, some of which she beat to get to the finals. Right. All of which she beat, actually.
Right, exactly.
Except for Tennessee.
Right.
And those players are very loyal to their schools. Like one guy, I won't even mention the article. One guy wrote an article and said, here's 8 players that are better, or here's 6 players that are better than Caitlin Clark. And of course he mentioned 3 Connecticut players, and he goes, and there's others too. So in other words, she's like, at best, she's 9th best player of all time. Okay. Which is silly. And so other things like that, the people who are saying, even Breanna Stewart, when they asked her, is she one of the greatest? Not even like one of the GOATs. Is she a great player? Oh, can't even be a great player. And same thing with the Jay Williams comment, if she didn't win a championship, no matter what she accomplished with a college that wasn't very good, and the team wasn't that strong. Mm-hmm. So I think there's a group of players like that who are loyal to their colleges, and so they're going to underrate anyone who didn't go to that particular school. I think there's some people, white and black, who are just tired of all the attention she's gotten, and that and think she's gotten too much attention, which is true, but that's not her fault. And I think there are some blacks who who particularly see it as a racial thing, that they're upset that a white woman in a sport dominated by blacks, both at the pro college level, men and women, and that she's getting too much attention, partly because she's white. Some think almost all because she's white. Even AJ Wilson said it's a huge reason, and I'll get into that.
Right.
So I think there are some blacks that are angry about saying she's overrated and getting too much attention, and they think that a huge reason is because she's white.
Do you think that if she, like we talked about it before, had she gone to a Connecticut, LSU, South Carolina college, would you think there'd be this much talk or bitterness towards her if she'd gone?
Well, not from that particular school, but yeah, it's probably still. But I think that's just a small faction. I think it's that she gets too much attention, which everyone has to admit. I mean, it's unbelievable how much attention she gets. In fact, I'm shocked at how much attention. And like I said, if this was a movie script, I would throw it out and say, you got to redo this. This is not believable enough how much attention she got. Michael Jordan's attention, you can see why he got that much attention. He was a male, and he was not only was the best, he was the most exciting. And then he got 6 championships in 8 years, and he was attractive. People thought he was good looking. Women thought he was sexy. He was flashy. Everything about him. And he was, basketball is the number 2 sport in the world, number 3 or number two sport here. I mean, baseball is really second, but you know what I'm saying? It's a very popular sport. So everything about that could contribute to the fact that he got that kind of publicity, and you can see it. And even people thought he got too much publicity.
So when was the last so-called white player that really got this attention? Maybe Larry Bird or
Larry Bird. No one else has got that attention besides Larry Bird.
Yeah, he's probably the last one to even get this type of. But that was because that also? I mean, the rival with Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese, is that kind of almost a similar type rival where they're trying to promote that.
Well, they both got it. They both had to become good enough for that to happen, and they both had to make the WNBA finals and play against each other.
They both won championships, so
Right. Well, Angel Reese has one with LSU, and Caitlin Clark doesn't have one. Right. But that was a similar scenario to Bird and Magic. In fact, the black player did have the championship, and the white player didn't. But then they each got him in the pros. Larry Bird got 3, as most people know. Magic got 5. Magic had a slightly more talented team. I think that when he got entered the Lakers, but Larry had a lot of talent around him too. But they're 2 of my favorite players of all time, and I don't care whether Larry Bird's white or black. He's not my favorite player, and he's white. So my favorite player is Michael Jordan.
Right. So like you said, with the far right, like you said, the left, right, and there's got to be a middle ground, like we're trying to be.
There is, and I'm gonna try to do that. Then their name that you came up with, people were calling them the Swifties, and you called them the Clarksies. And these are people who probably, they may be younger, or they don't know basketball. They just got wrapped up in the phenomenon that Caitlin Clark is, and they suddenly started watching basketball. So they don't know as much as they think they do. And it's not their fault. They're just new to sports or new to basketball. Now, not all of them. Some of them, followed sports, but just never followed WNBA. Like me, I didn't follow it that closely. I've watched women's basketball, but not WNBA a lot. And so, but people are like that, and now they know everything, and that's what the internet does. Anybody that can type can make a comment in social media, and everybody gets an opinion, no matter how qualified the opinion is. And I'm not saying my opinion is right, or I'm the 100% most qualified person in the world, but I know basketball, and I know sports, and I know football, and so that's what I'm going to comment on in our channel.
Well, plus you also know like you said, you also know what sells. So, I mean, like you said before, I mean, Angel Reese.
I can see what gets videos.
Put more effort into Angel Reese, or put more effort into Caitlin Clark. It's not a black thing. It's not a white thing. It might be just a money thing, or just like more interest. It's not a money. It's an interest thing.
Right. I mean, well, let me get the other half that's over here. Nick Wright is a very smart guy, and I really like him as a commentary. And he's a Caitlin Clark fan, and he says she's the best player he's ever seen. And he doesn't go necessarily. He said you could argue that she's the GOAT, but he's not necessarily saying it strongly because she doesn't have a championship. But he says you could make that argument. And then he said that's just after 6 games. I don't think it was after the 7th game. We're taping this after her 7th game, by the way. She has an 8th game tonight against LA Sparks, and hope it's 7:00. And he said he was talking to Chris Broussard, and he said she's played very well, all things considered. And then later he said she's played great so far. And I think he meant great, all things considered, because she hasn't played great. And even all things considered, she hasn't played great. I think you could argue she played very well, all things considered. But she could have played better, the forcing and stuff of the turnovers and, the composure sometimes. And she could shoot a little better. But so I think he overstated it. And he's pretty objective normally. I really like him. But the Clarkies think she's the GOAT already. I see comments like, she's the GOAT. She's the GOAT. And I think she might have been in college. But she's not the GOAT yet in pros. And she's not even close to establishing that. I think she can be. And I predict she will be if she doesn't get injured. But she has a long, long way to go. And she has to, and especially we've talked about this, she has to be defensively, she has to step it up, and she has to get the turnovers down, and she has to win championships.
But do you have the people like the ones who are against her, or they're saying, oh, look, see, she's not scoring 30, 40 points like she did in the college. So what's the big deal about her?
Nobody said she was going to do that the first year anyway.
No, I mean
even the biggest ones said she wasn't going to score 30 points. I saw, like 20 points people said. And that was
but they were saying, what's the big exactly? What's the big deal? That's the whole thing behind it. What's the big deal behind her?
But I mean, some of the Clarksies don't think any of the turnovers are her fault, or something like that, or some of her shooting woes are her fault, because some of those shots she hit in college and the ones I've seen her make. But she, we'll get into what she's been up against, but there's a happy medium there, and I'm not saying my analysis of Caitlin Clark is correct, and I'm 100% objective. I'm saying the haters out there, just get with reality, because you're not even close to being true. Those comments that I said off the beginning, none of those are true. None of them are even close to being true. Right. And, that she has a perfect game, or that she's the GOAT already, or whatever, and that she played great. And that, none of that's not close to being true either. So
what you're saying is that essentially is just sit back, like we said, relax, enjoy the game, and see see how it goes. But I mean, don't just focus on Caitlin Clark. Like I said, like you said, AJ Wilson, and the WNBA has some very good players.
Right.
So, but she's promoting the league, bringing it out more than, like you said, most people never would even watch a WNBA game. So,
like you asked me why I think these people are underrated her and hating on her. I can say why some people overrate her. When an athlete is exciting, an exciting athlete, and you're a fan of that athlete, you automatically overrate them unless you pull yourself back. I always every time I watch Michael Jordan and he did a drive to the basket and my jaw dropped, I had to pull myself back and say, well, he was the greatest player of all time. He just made that play. I had to do that every time I watched him play, because I found him. I was in a trance when I watched him play. It was that exciting to me. If you weren't old enough to watch him in his prime, you really missed the greatest athlete of all time. But you have to pull yourself back and say, Deion Sanders is the most exciting football player maybe I ever saw. But you still have to be aware of the fact that he was a lousy tackler or whatever. And you can't overrate him, but he was a great, great player. But you also had to make sure you weren't thinking he was perfect as a player, because he was so darn exciting and so athletically gifted. And you have to do that. Caitlin Clark is fascinating to watch if you're a fan of hers. If you're a hater, you're not gonna understand this. But I'm fascinated watching her play because of her competitiveness and how exciting she is. Those logo threes and the 3-point shots, her passings, she's as exciting a passer since Magic Johnson. She really is that exciting a passer. I mean, I think I'll take that back. LeBron to me is a great passer. I think LeBron's an underrated passer. He's as good as any passer in the NBA history. And he's a very exciting passer to me. Right. But her passes are unbelievable. I had like 4 times a game sometimes I'll say, wow.
Yeah,
I don't even think Magic Johnson averaged 4 passes like that where I went, wow. Yeah. And he might have been the most exciting passer ever. And, so that to me, she's that to me is why I find her exciting, and I like the clutchness of her. I like when she suddenly takes over a game that Michael Jordan used to. I'm not saying she could do it as well as Michael Jordan. Don't go get that wrong.
Get twisted. Don't get twisted.
Don't get twisted. But she does take over the game, and she had, and in college at least, she made her teammates so much better. It was unbelievable how much she made her teammates better and how much of an influence she had on whether or not they won or lost that game.
So the promotion is
in the pros yet.
So the promotion in her the way the things are, how everything is with her is valid. It's valid. It's not just because she's white. It's just because it's valid. She's a great ball player.
Yeah, I mean, we've gone over that in other videos, but for sake of completeness, I will just say really briefly that Breanna Stewart was the most accomplished player of all time and also had a great pro career so far. And she doesn't move the needle one bit. She's not marketable. She's not popular. She didn't increase the ratings more than 1%. She didn't increase the attendance 1%. Right. Kelsey Plum was player of the year and kind of an exciting player, more exciting player than I think than Breanna Stewart. And she has the additional advantage of being attractive, and she didn't move the needle. And they're both very white the last I checked. To think that this was mainly because of white, that logically that can't possibly be true. Otherwise, Breanna Stewart and Kelsey Plum and even Sabrina and I ask you if I've always pronounced it wrong. She's kind of an exciting player with the 3-point shot. She didn't move the needle either. So stop it. That it could be a huge reason. Obviously it's a partial reason because she's white, because this 59% white in this country, and it's a sport. You could say that's an additional reason. It's a sport that blacks dominate. There's not many white stars in that sport. Yeah, that a little bit of popularity goes to white. I can't give you a percentage. I can say it has zero effect on me, but I think for some white people, it does influence whether or not they like her, find her popular, or think she's a great player. For me, I'm telling you, as far as I can tell, it doesn't. I could be wrong. If she turns out to be a total bust in 5 years from now, then I would be wrong about that. But I don't think that's going to happen.
I doubt that very much. That's going to happen. She's going to, like you're exactly right. And I'm trying to be objective. You're teaching me to be more objective about my teams, but I mean, you're right. You have to look at it that way. You can't just say one that go to extreme and then the hating part.
And when football season comes around, you can test me on my objectivity. Anybody who's listening to this in the comments below, if I say things that are not objective about the Green Bay Packers, you write them in the comments, because I go out of my way, and I've loved them since I was 3 years old, and since 1962. So if I think I'm objective about the Packers. I didn't think they were going to beat the Cowboys in the playoffs last year. And they did. My friend predicted them to win. I go, that's just because you like Green Bay. No, he was right. They crushed them.
And me as my Browns. I didn't think my Browns would get that far. They lost. They played with 4 quarterbacks, and they made the playoffs, and they actually won a game in the playoffs. So,
but I made a comment. I don't know if I made it on any of our videos, but I made a couple comments on YouTube where I said Caitlin Clark is the first athlete in history who her entire career, WNBA career, entire pro career, was judged by her first 2 games. She was already judged whether or not she was going to be a success after her first 2 games.
Right.
It's never happened before. I told the story. We've told the story before. O.J. Simpson was a semi-bust for 3 seasons before he had a breakout season. His 5th season, he finally got a coach the 4th season. Caitlin Clark doesn't have a good coach, in my opinion. It doesn't mean she's lousy. It doesn't mean they should fire her after 1 game or because she criticized Clark. I think she looks a little lost. And we'll get into that. Yeah. But let me give you a scenario that if Caitlin Clark entered the league in a different scenario, and then we'll go all the things that she's been up against. Let's pretend that Caitlin Clark is playing in the NBA, and she got 6 months in between the season when the season starts, where she could work on any weaknesses in her game and build up on her strength, and had some rest. Let's pretend that happened. Now let's pretend she gets sent to a team with a veteran coach who saw her play at Iowa and said, well, I'm not going to change much about that. And then let's say she gets sent to the Aces, where they already have an MVP, and they also have a great shooting guard, and they have a great team around her that she doesn't get much attention when she get that. And then let's pretend they got the schedule of the Aces, who played 4 games in 12 days, and they were all at home.
Right.
And let's pretend that when she got in the NBA, the refs didn't give her ticky-tack fouls, and they gave her, and when she got physically mauled a little bit, they gave her more calls. I'm telling you that the first 3 games, I'm just saying it's been okay after that. She got the reverse treatment of the ref. She didn't get special treatment. She got reverse,
Right.
not a lot, but enough to throw her off mentally. Where the first foul that she ever got was a phantom foul.
Yes,
and then
it was.
There was then the next game. There was and maybe it was the third game. The fourth game against Liberty. It was a kick ball. It was a kick ball, and it was the most obvious kick ball in the world. Nothing there. She gets a kick foul at the other end of the court, and that's a turnover. She got a turnover for that. You know what I'm saying? Like the refs miss certain things like that. I'm not saying they have it against her. And the concept is they're going to, but they're basically saying to the public is, I'm going to make sure I don't show any favoritism to this woman who's getting all this publicity. That doesn't mean they hate her. Right. They're just don't want to be criticized for doing that. Instead of doing right down the middle, they went a little bit over here.
Right.
And ended up hurting her a little bit. I think they were unfair to her because they're afraid of being over here. As I say,
exactly. Because the refs,
I don't think it was dishonest. I don't think
the refs are human beings. They see and they hear. They're like, oh my gosh.
Right. But I think people realized that she was getting tic-tac fouls, and since then, I think it's been fair. But the first 3 games, I don't think it was. That's why she was getting foul trouble, and she'd never been foul trouble before. Part of it was because she was playing more defense, and she also didn't move her feet enough and was reaching in. Some of the fouls were her fault. I get all that, but that's still. She was then let's pretend that instead of the most pressure since any athlete since LeBron James, she had almost no pressure. She came out as the 10th pick in the draft. Mm-hmm. Let's pretend she didn't have any publicity whatsoever, and let's pretend she's not a white player. She's a black player that came in. Let's pretend she's a lesbian if you want. But whatever it is, give me all those scenarios and give me that perfect scenario. And then you stick her on that team that I just described to you and tell me her numbers wouldn't be twice as good. Tell me her turnovers wouldn't be in half. Tell me her shooting percentage wouldn't be higher. Tell me she wouldn't be happier. Tell me mentally she wouldn't be as drained right now in that scenario.
Well, so the people are saying, like with some of the comments, which I saw really great comments where do you see where someone comes to the league and she's double teamed every game? Have you ever seen a player double teamed every game?
And I'm going to get to that.
Have you seen that? I've never seen that.
I gave you the scenario I gave you. She's not going to be double teamed at all because she has players on her better. She's the best player on her team. As good as Boston was last year, and she was an all-star. She was a starting all-star. I didn't even know she was starting all-star. She shot 58%, led the WNBA 50%. She got rebounds. She averaged 14 points, I think almost 10 rebounds or 8 rebounds. I don't have it in front of me. And she was a really good player. Mm-hmm. And she was Rookie of the Year. But Caitlin Clark is better than her. I could see that in game 1. She was more talented than her. And they were both Player of the Years in college. But she's the best player on the team. If you stuck her on the Aces, right now she might be the 3rd best player in that team, or even Connecticut or Liberty. She might be the 2nd or 3rd best player in that team. So she would not get double teamed. They're going to double team the best player in that team.
Right. I mean, that's the game plan for the coach. Stop Caitlin Clark.
So all you haters out there, give me that scenario and pretend that's what really happened to her. And then tell me you really think that her performance would be identical to what happened. And then go and tell me that what I'm going to tell you right now is an excuse, as opposed to somewhat a combination between an excuse and a reason. Because that's what I think they are. Mm-hmm. And I won't get into definitions of excuse and reason, but they're really a combination of the two. And so let's talk about what happened. She had no time between college and pro, which is normal in WNBA, but let's just say that happens to players. She's on a brand new team that was young and inexperienced, with a coach that's inexperienced. It doesn't seem to know how to handle a fast break type of team. Mm-hmm. She does her substitution and her timing completely wrong. Yeah, she'll rest him in the middle of the second quarter, in the middle of the fourth quarter. And we talked about this in another video where she should play her the entire first quarter, and then she should rest him the beginning of the second quarter. So she has more rest in a row, because then she gets the 4 minutes in between the first and the second quarter. Same thing in the fourth quarter. She should play her the third quarter and rest him in the beginning of the fourth quarter. And she should play her more minutes too. And just, she gets some fouls, trouble, yeah, fine. But she's sporadic with how she sits her and doesn't sit her. And she sits her in the middle of the fourth quarter when that's prime time for her to close out a game.
Yeah, like we said, with the offense, the way she runs her offense. And if she's a main player, she has some offensive plays for us. High screens, down screens, off the pick. She doesn't do that. She have her move around more. So she does not do that as a coach.
And one more thing I forgot, perfect scenario. Let's also pretend that your shooting guard wasn't injured the first 2 games with a sore ankle, and you didn't switch positions on her like the first 2 games. The first 2 games, she was playing half shooting guard, half point guard, which isn't the coach's fault. The shooting guard, Mitchell, had a sore ankle, only played a few minutes each game and wasn't obviously 100%. And then now she's playing both positions, and she's totally confused what she's doing. and she's used to having the ball in her hand. She was confused both first 2 games for that. And so now Mitchell comes back, and she's not used to playing with Mitchell because Mitchell barely played the games before. She kind of played when Clark was out, So she's not used to playing with Mitchell. And Mitchell's used to just driving the basket and just creating her own points. He wasn't used to. Mitchell's not used to playing well with the other players. I think she's too much of a one-on-one player, but I think she's talented, and I think she might be the quickest person in the league. I think she's a good player. And then for some reason, I don't know why, Boston got off to a slow start. She's played well the last 2 games. I'm not picking on her. She's a nice lady. She's a good leader, I think. She was very great after the first half of the first game. You see her arm around her talking to Caitlin Clark, who was bummed out about the first half and got ticky-tack fouls and stuff. And she was there in support of her. I don't know if the pressure of Caitlin Clark and her supporting her being the team leader now instead of a rookie affected her game, but she was shooting 38% instead of 58% the first 5 games.
Yeah.
And that threw the whole team off because she was the star player last year and she wasn't performing well. And I'm not picking on her. I think she's going to have a great career. And now she played well the last 2 games. And, the only thing I was saying, I think it'd be helpful if she lost a little weight, and then she'd be better suited to play with Caitlin Clark, who wants to play fast, gets the ball and throw it down the court. And she's used to Hannah Stokey, who ran track in high school at Iowa. Iowa, but she played.
The Fever had the first round, the last 3 first round draft choices. So I mean, the Aces weren't that good before either. They weren't that good until they got their draft choices. So that I saw one comment also, someone saying maybe eventually they'll hopefully be like the Aces. Maybe they can come up and be like the Aces as far as
So, and then you get this ridiculous schedule where they get 7 games in 12 days. They had the roughest schedule of all 12 teams. Okay, so I gave you a scenario where the Aces, who were the defending champs, who were the ones that least needed an easy schedule to begin with, and they got the easiest schedule. The team that was 2-time defending champs got the easiest schedule. The team that needed the most time to get 4 home games in 12 days got the worst schedule. And I'm not even saying they did it in person because the schedule was released December 18th before Caitlin Clark announced she was going pro, whether she was going to Indiana, because they do the lottery thing just like the NBA. Indiana didn't have the worst record in the league last year. They were like 3rd. So they didn't, no one knew where they were going. This is just bad luck. I understand later on everybody else has the same thing, but they got it in the beginning when they were trying to gel with a new team and a new player, an injured thing, a coach who's not experienced. That's a lot. Caitlin Clark.
That's a major factor. That was a major factor, definitely.
So you can say whatever you want if you're a hater. I don't care. You can write all the comments. I'm giving you reasons that made it more difficult. I'm not saying that she shouldn't overcome some of this, but then they had a back-to-back at Liberty, and they had a fly overnight, and they had 5 away games and only 2 home games in 7 and 12 days. And they had no practices to gel their team together, and that's difficult when you don't have a veteran team. So I just want people to keep that in mind and not look at it as an excuse, but look at it how it's going to affect the play of Caitlin Clark and the team. Right. And the team's important too here because, if you're going to be a Caitlin Clark player and you want the Liberty to win, you want the Fever to win because you want to make the playoffs.
So Mark, you're going to teach people how to be objective about.
I'm not necessarily teaching people. I'm saying try to be objective. Try not to think she's this perfect player and it's going to be the GOAT overnight, and quit pretending that she has zeros, that she's a one trick pony. I mean, one trick pony, that's the easiest thing in the world to show that you're wrong because she led the college women's basketball in scoring and in passing. Those are 2 separate skills. So one trick pony's already out the window, and I'd give you several other skills that she has. She's more like a 6 trick pony. But she has limitations to her offensive game. She has limitations to her defensive game, and she needs to cut down on the turnovers. And we've gone over all that. Right. But to say stupid things like that is just you just look like a fool. But you can do it anonymously, so that's why you get away with it. But if that makes you feel better, go ahead. You can say those things all you want.
Well, that's the internet. That's the internet.
I get it. That's the internet. I'm just telling you, none of it's true, and it doesn't make it true because you put it in a comment or you write it somewhere in your social media thing.
Right. Just do the research and use your eyes. Use the eye research too. Watch the games, and just see how she is, and don't just have that typical knee-jerk reaction to 2 games. Oh, she's horrible. 2 games. 2 games.
I really think, that the coach had a certain offense and wanted to use the same offense as last year and didn't realize that's kind of a bad idea. She's a very unique player, and you need to just look at what they did in Iowa and not necessarily do the exact same thing, but say, we've got to do some of this. And I don't know why it took her 7 games to figure that out. She didn't really have the ball in her hand until like the last 2 games. And guess what? When she finally had the ball in the hands and she looked like it was her show, it was game 6. And guess what? They won. And she played her 37 minutes and she was in there in the 4th quarter. And guess what? They won.
Right.
Because Caitlin Clark, she didn't even shoot well. And then she hits 2 big threes and gets a block. Supposedly doesn't play any defense. Gets a block with 20, 30 seconds left. She was 0 for 7, hits 2 big threes. Why? Because she's a clutch player. But they let her play in the 4th quarter. She didn't sit her out in the middle of the 4th quarter like in game 5. So, it would completely throw me off too. Mentally, it gets to you when you have the most pressure of any athlete since LeBron James. And those who are sitting there, armchair quarterbacks who think, grow up or handle it or whatever, you're a professional. I just gave you a big group of stuff that she had to overcome. And then she's got people hating on her because she's white or straight or whatever. And you don't think that affects her. And then she gets, all this press publicity that takes away her time. And you don't think that affects her knowing that the black players in the league resent her? Not all of them. And there hasn't been that many that have said things, but resent her because the publicity, because she's white, and they think that she's overrated because she's white, or they think she doesn't deserve publicity that she's white, and all of it because she's white. You don't think that affects her mentally?
Of course. Well, of course, mentally it will. It's going to affect her and have all this thrust upon her. I mean, she's used to that in college, but now when you're in the prime with out here in the real world, that's a lot of pressure for someone. So
and Nancy Lieberman, who knows a little bit about basketball, if you know, she's a legend from the 70s. She is white. She was a great passer, and she's in the Hall of Fame, and she's a coach and all that. And she said she would love to have her team. And she said I've never seen more attention and more double teaming to any rookie that's ever entered the league in the history of the NBA in 27 years, including Candace Parker. In fact, I think Candace Parker is great. She was my favorite player other than Cheryl Miller, but she scored 34 points and like 13 rebounds her first game. You think they were double teaming her if she scored 34 points? No, I don't think so. I didn't see the game, but I'm just saying she didn't even get as much attention. Candace Parker didn't get as much attention as Caitlin Clark, I suspect. Right. And she was great. Don't get me wrong. She's MVP, and she was pro ready right away, obviously.
Yeah, right.
And because that's the only one in 27 years that did that. But I can't imagine if she really sucks like the hater says. Why does every coach have their entire defensive game plan to stop her? Not because she's overrated, because she has mad skills. She's not a perfect player. She has limitations, but she has mad skills because she can score and pass. And most people can't do that. Very few people can do that. And she has unbelievable vision and such range on her shot that it opens up the offense for people. So if she really sucked, and I've heard every coach interviewed afterwards, and they say, yeah, we give her a lot of respect because she has skills.
Every coach. One
woman called her a beast. One coach said, we darn tootin' we defense. They all know in their head, I'm not going to be the first coach that looks like an idiot and didn't double team Caitlin Clark and put my best defender on her and gave her more attention than anyone on the court. Because if I do that and she goes off and goes for 30 points and 15 assists, I'm going to get fired and look like the dumbest coach in the league. But now they're all going to have to do it, and they're all doing it, and it's fine. Bring it on for Caitlin Clark. It's going to make her stronger, make her a better player. But don't think she's not at a disadvantage.
Right.
That's all I'm saying. Even Michael Jordan didn't get that attention when he was a rookie. And Michael Jordan won a national championship. And, he led the team. He led the Olympic team to victory. So people knew who he was. People knew that he was the best rookie coming in along with Olajuwon. So, but he started out, his first part of his first half. If you go look at his stats, the first half of the season, he was averaging more like 20 points a game, probably because he was used to shooting not a lot because he played for Dean Smith, who held him down to 20. And then the second half of the season, he was averaging like 35 points a game. So he exploded the second half of the season. And we're talking 82-game season. So the first 40 games, people are like jumping at Caitlin Clark after 2 games. Jordan didn't explode to the second half of his rookie year. That's after he played 40 games. Caitlin Clark only gets 40 games this year. Right. We're not even at half of her season at 20 yet. So that's all I'm saying. That, just let's be realistic on how we do it. We'll see how she does at the end of the year. If at the end of the year she still sucks, fine, then you were right. I think there's zero chance that's going to happen unless she gets injured.
And then if she's at the end of the year, if she's not doing well during the year, we're going to comment on that. We're not going to just like let it slide and say, oh, maybe she was tired. We're going to be on her
No, I'll criticize her. Yeah, and then she was like third or fourth in the MVP odds. Well, that's just Las Vegas being silly, knowing people would bet on her. I never said she had a chance to be MVP this year. I said she has a chance of being first team All Pro, and I still think she has a chance. And the best point guard in the league is injured right now with a foot. Chelsea Gray.
Yeah, Chelsea Gray.
So she has a chance of being first team All Pro, but she has 33 more games to prove herself and improve a lot to do that. But other people, so people have to be realistic about that. Like they're realistic about how she's going to do. People are saying she was going to be the best player in the league. Of course not. I never said that. And and the guards don't usually get MVP in this league, so it doesn't happen that often. But all I said is I think she has a good shot at being first team All Pro, and that I think she could do 28 and 6 with 4 turnovers, a steal and a half a block. And she got more than half a block right now.
I believe somebody even called her mediocre. Like, mediocre? What are you talking about?
They called her mediocre in college, which is ridiculous for a 2-time player of the year with no real accomplishments. So, leading most points in the history of basketball, men and women. No real accomplishments. Led 2 teams to the finals that didn't belong there. No. Beat an undefeated team and then beat 2 blue chip teams in the quarterfinals and the semifinals. And had a triple-double with 41 points on the way before she beat the undefeated team. And she lost in the finals both times against two better teams. It's not an individual sport. It's a team sport. That's all I have to say. She didn't play poorly either.
No.
In either game.
No.
It's not like she choked. It's not like her team was better and then lost. Her team was not as good, and they lost against better team both times.
So for us to keep talking about her is valid. It's a valid thing. She's going to be a great player. I don't care what.
Well, we're trying to grow our channel, and people like Caitlin Clark. So I'll be honest, that's the reason behind it. But it's also because she's the most popular athlete in the country. And it's the first time in 150 years of American sports that a female is the most popular athlete in the country for more than a week or two, like an Olympic athlete. So that's a great thing. It's a great thing for women's sports. It's a great thing for publicity that she's doing.
That's the main point, Mark. That's what I'm trying to say. The main point for Black players or any of the players in the NBA, lesbian, whatever, she is promoting your game and is building it up. People are going to watch the game more because of her. So stop with the hating or stop disliking her for that. She's going to bring you in more money. She's going to bring you more money and promotion.
Angel Reese fans say that Angel Reese was better than Caitlin Clark, both in college and in the pros, that Angel Reese is more popular than Caitlin Clark. Sorry, none of those are true. Angel Reese is a very good player. She was second team All-American last year, and she was first the year before. She was a 7th round pick for a reason. If she was the best player, she would have gone at least second. Mm-hmm. She didn't even go second. And I think she's going to have a very good career.
Yes, she will.
So far in her viewership, she hasn't sold out any games. Caitlin Clark has sold out 7 games out of 7. And Angel Reese hasn't sold out any games, and the highest viewership she got in her games that she's been on is 100,000. Caitlin Clark is 2.13 million, and another one for 1.7 million. So she might be more popular in social media, though it doesn't count in the WA or anything like that. But yeah, she gets a little credit for the popularity of the WNBA, Angel Reese, but not as much as Clark. So the haters that say that, a big Angel Reese fan, I'm sorry, they're not in the same level. They're not on the same level in basketball ability. They're not on the same level in popularity for WNBA purposes or for basketball purposes or for sports purposes. Social media, yes. She's got a huge social media following, Angel Reese. So I'm not putting Angel Reese down. I'm just telling you, those are other haters that I've seen out there, and they love Angel Reese, so they feel a need to put down Caitlin Clark. It's not necessary. I'm not hating on Angel Reese. I don't like her personality, but I'm not wishing any bad luck to her. I hope she plays well. If she becomes the second best player in the WNBA and Caitlin Clark becomes the best player or vice versa, great for the WNBA.
Exactly.
They mean the finals 5 years in a row. You will have huge ratings. The WNBA will make it as a league. I'll be happy. But I don't think that's going to happen. I think what's going to happen is Caitlin Clark is going to be against AJ Wilson in the finals, more likely. Because AJ Wilson is probably the best player in the league. Maybe Brianna Stewart, maybe Alyssa Thomas. I don't know. There was the MVP voting last year was almost a 3-way tie. So that's what's going to happen. And when the ratings, if Caitlin Clark finally makes the finals or win a championship, the ratings will go through the roof. And I'll be happy for the WNBA and the women in it. And, yeah, she gets too much publicity. That's not her fault. She's white. It's not her fault that she gets too much publicity. So stop hating on her for those reasons. That's what I'm trying to get through in this video. And stop overrating her if you're like a Clarksy or a Clark lover and stuff like that. And everyone just give her some time. And I think the last 2 games, they finally gave her the keys to Ferrari. And I think things will turn around and we'll see what happens. And I tell you, like I said, we did a whole video on what shortcomings she has and things she has to work on. So if you're going to make a comment down below and say this is a Clark excuse channel or you guys don't criticize Caitlin Clark, I did a whole video on that. And about 60% of the video was criticizing her weaknesses. So I just want you to know that up front. And I try to, that's what all I'm trying to say, Rob. Anything else you want to say about?
No, I think you've said enough.
I think I've said too much. And that's what we have. So, and this is a video just about Caitlin Clark. I'm just saying, people, just be patient and see how she is. And at the end of the first year, then you can decide whether she was overrated or underrated, or she has no chance of being the GOAT, or she's the GOAT already, or whatever. But let her play 40 games.
Yeah, let her play out. Let her
get used to her teammates and let her see what happens to her shooting percentage and her turnovers and her dribbling, not getting ball stolen from her. And let's see whether she continually is the only one they cover is as Boston plays better, Alyssa Smith plays better, as Mitchell plays better, and then they can't key on her anymore. And I think they have 5 good players. And I'm not sure the pronunciation of this woman, but I've heard Feg Benley. I think she's an excellent player. I think they have 5 good players. They're just young and not used to playing with each other. Exactly. So I think that the team has a good future, and I still think they'll make the playoffs. I don't think they're going to go anywhere in the playoffs, but I think they'll make the playoffs. And that's my take, and I'm sticking to it.
All righty.
And don't forget to like and subscribe. And if you do subscribe, please hit that notification bell. And feel free to make non-insulting, intelligent comments. And ones like, oh, this is Caitlin Clark excuse or not. So stop it. Make something and say something intelligent and accurate, please.
All right. Peace out.
All right, bye.